Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. Welcome to the fourth day of Skysil's live event. I hope you're excited. So, today we have a theme on growth beyond traditional technology rules. So, we'll be hosting Jayant and Dravisha today and the College of MITS. And we have a surprise college for you because we wanted to include as many students as possible in to seek more opportunities. So we have SRCSW for you, where that is Shahid Rajguru College of Applied Sciences for Women. And from SRCSW, we have Akanksha with you to introduce the college and give you a brief about what the college is about, how they're interested, what things they're interested in, and everything in between. So, hi
Hi,
Akanksha, how are you doing?
hi. I'm good, thank you. How about you?
I'm good as well. So tell me a little bit about yourself, about your college, how's everything going?
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. I am Akansha Jain, GDSC lead at Shahid Rajguru College of Applied Sciences for Women, and I am also currently a Gold Microsoft Loan Student Ambassador. I am a third year student pursuing BSc Honors in Computer Science, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Cool. So a quick intro from my side as well. I'm Akshita Agarwala. I am one of the co-founders of Skysil, and I'm currently working as a software engineer at Microsoft. So yeah, tell me like is like your college going offline right now? What is it online, and how is everything? How are you holding on in
Yeah.
this pandemic times?
Yeah, okay. So my college just opened 1 week back, and I'm really tired of going to college because it was, shut down since the past 2 years, and I'm really very tired of going college right now. But yeah, it's cool to go to college again and meet my friends and everything. So yeah, it's going great.
That's awesome. So, what do you miss about online classes and what do you not miss about online classes? Just a quick.
Okay. Yeah, so in online classes, there is one habit that we can sleep with our mic mutes and cameras off. And whenever the teacher used to ask us anything about the subject or anything, we can just mute ourselves and just sit back and relax, and we don't have to answer anything or something like that. So that is the one thing that I miss the most in offline. And in online, what I missed was there is one favorite memory of my college. It is the one that when we had our annual fest, and I hope everyone misses their annual fest at the college. So in that annual fest, we had Jasleen Kaur, and it was really a blast at that point of time. And after this whole COVID thing happened, so that's one thing that I miss the most.
That's amazing. I hope you get to get your fest this year at least.
Yeah.
And yeah, stay tuned for some exciting conversations, career conversations that we'll be having. So, yeah,
Yeah.
so let me invite our first speaker for today, that is Jayant Mundhra. So, Jayant, a quick intro for Jayant. Hi, Jayant. So,
Hey,
Jayant, it won't take much of your time. Just like Jayant is a self-published author, and he has a knack for reading as well. And right currently, he's working at the founder's office at one of the fastest growing edtech startups. That is one of the fastest growing edtech startups. So please, Jayant, take over. Introduce yourself properly, and excited for your talk.
absolutely. Same here. All right, so I will probably begin by sharing a deck out here. I hope that the deck is visible to all right now. So yeah, so there it goes. So who am I? My name is Jayant Shilanjan Mundhra. Namaskar, Adab, Salam, Vadakkam, Jai Shri Krishna, and जो बोले सोनियाल सत श्री अकाल मैं काम करता हूँ एक एडटेक स्टार्टअप में जिसका नाम है क्लास प्लस. मैंने एक बुक लिखी है जिसका नाम है रिडेम्पशन ऑफ अ सन. आई एम समवन हु लव्स टू रीड अबाउट बिजनेसेस, स्टार्टअप्स, साइकोलॉजी, एंड आई हैव अ ग्रेट ड्रीम टू वन डे रन माय ओन सक्सेसफुल वेंचर, एंड आई जस्ट होप दैट वन डे कम्स वेरी सून इनफ. दैट्स इट. थोड़ा सा आगे बढ़ते हैं एंड इस टॉपिक को आगे बढ़ाते हैं. सो फर्स्टली जिस बात पे भी हम डिस्कशन करने वाले हैं दैट इज अबाउट देयर आर अपॉर्चुनिटीज गलोर फॉर पीपल हु आस्क फॉर मोर। कहने का मतलब है कि अपॉर्चुनिटीज बहुत सारी हैं उन लोगों के लिए जो कि उसके लिए आस्क करते हैं, मांगते हैं। एंड ऑफ कोर्स हम यहाँ बात कर रहे हैं टेक एंड बियॉन्ड की, कि नॉन ट्रेडिशनल टेक रोल्स के अलावा भी बहुत सारी अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं मार्केट में। तो मैं उस तरफ आपको लेके जाना चाहूंगा अपनी खुद की कहानी के थ्रू। तो हु एम आई? वेल, आई एम समवन हु वाज बोर्न इन वेस्ट बंगाल। सिलीगुड़ी नाम की एक जगह है वहाँ पे, जिसको चिकन स्नैक के नाम से भी बोलते हैं। आई वाज बोर्न देयर, रेज्ड इन सेवरल पार्ट्स ऑफ राजस्थान एंड दिल्ली एनसीआर, एंड एज ऑफ प्रेजेंट आई एम एन इंडियन फ्रॉम द नॉर्थ। I am also an avid reader and writer. I love to go to the stage and speak up, just like I'm speaking up right now. And I am someone who likes to be identified as a person who believes in building and correcting things than just complaining about them and being there, saying that it cannot be done. That's it. What are words that I relate to the most? Integrity, intent. Kyunki anything you do, it has to be always be done with integrity, and there has to be a reason why you're doing it. And you have to do it with speed. And other than that, the words that I relate the most to are empathy, puns, and tempered. Yes, I am a little tempered, and I crack very bad puns, and I am someone who is quite sensitive about a number of things. That's it. Well, who else am I? Turns out I'm a person who is just another average kid from a middle class family who's trying to change the fortunes for himself and his family. How? Intent बहुत simple है. I want to do it by pursuing a big, big dream. A number of such big dreams, in fact. And my journey so far about towards that particular big goal has been all about pivots and passions. And that is the key. That's why kept the term pivots in bold out here. So what kind of pivots are we talking about right now? That is a thing which I'm going to discuss in the next slide. So this is what my career in a very, very short span looks like. I began my career as a data analyst at a research and analytics firm called the SmartQ. It's based out of Noida. Great team, great people out there, and I got very good exposure. And I was also very lucky that in my entire stay there, I was never asked to stay on bench. I always had great projects to work on for great clients. So that is where my career began. But within just 7.5 months, 7 months, I made a pivot and I moved from pure play analytics to basically data analytics. I moved to consulting area. I joined Bain and Company's Capability Network in Gurgaon. I joined them basically as an analyst in the consumer product service line. And there, the exposure that I got and the kind of work that I was doing was entirely different. But that wasn't enough for me, apparently. And I finally took another plunge for another pivot. And this time, I made the pivot to the startup world, doing things that I had not been doing so far. And why? Because this is where I think I always belong. And that is where Class Plus happened. So, what is Class Plus, by the way? Well, let me just give you a brief intro to that if you're not already aware of us. Class Plus, that is India's biggest B2B edtech startup, largest business to business edtech startup. We are also one of the fastest growing edtech startups in India, probably also globally. And apart from that, well, we are based out of Noida and we are building a full blown rocket ship, which is going to be a global phenomenon when it comes to edtech and creator economy spaces. That is Class Plus for us. So I joined this ship and back in July last year, I've been working in the founder's office. I report directly to the two founders and I'm lucky enough to be learning directly from them. So soon in my career, if I'm getting this opportunity, I could not have been asking for more. And what am I doing out here? Well, a number of things. I like to identify myself as an executioner and someone who is supposed to have answers to everything. And I have a stronghold in playing with data and helping validate and generate different intelligences that can be used for strategic purposes by this particular rocket ship. And yes, that is what I've been doing so far. नाउ की थिंग्स टू टेक अवे जो भी अभी तक मैंने यहाँ बोला उससे क्या है. नंबर वन, जनरली लोगों को क्या लगता है, व्हाट पीपल थिंक इज दैट पीपल फ्रॉम एवरेज कॉलेजेस फाइंड इट डिफिकल्ट टू क्रैक बिग अपॉर्चुनिटीज आउट देयर, कि इजीली बड़े दरवाजे नहीं खुलते हैं उन लोगों के लिए जो कि एवरेज कॉलेज से आते हैं. आई एम ए कॉन्ट्राडिक्शन टू दैट. मेरे लिए खुले दरवाजे, बेन में भी खुला, इन क्लास प्लस में भी आई गॉट एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू वर्क विद द टू फाउंडर्स, अंडर देम, अंडर देयर गाइडेंस, अंडर देयर लीडरशिप, लर्निंग फ्रॉम देम. सो दिस वन doesn't really hold true कि एवरेज कॉलेज वाले बच्चे को बड़े अपॉर्चुनिटीज नहीं मिलती है. सेकंड, people think that one should always stick to just one domain and become a specialist if they want to succeed. कि हाँ, अगर आप टेक में हो तो टेक में ही रहो, अगर आप आर्ट्स के हो तो रिलेवेंट फील्ड्स में ही रहो, एंड अगर आप एनालिटिक्स में तो एनालिटिक्स में ही रहो. इट इजंट दैट वे. थिंग्स डू नॉट रियली वर्क दैट वे. थिंग इज, आई एम अ great example for that. मैंने pivots किए हैं. I was in pure play analytics. I moved to business analytics, and then now I'm doing something totally else. Basically, treading towards the strategy lane and working at a startup. Basically, back then, when I was in consulting area or in pure play analytics, it used to be one project which was go on at times for 3 months, at times for a month or two. Now, every 3 days, I'm working on something new. That is the pace at which the startup world basically functions. And here, I'm working as a generalist. I'm no specialist. I have no core competence, but a number of different competencies that I can handle on my plate. So, whatever my founders basically throw on me, whatever is the need of the hour for a startup, that is an area which I build my competency in for the hour. That is my role. So when they say that आपको स्पेशलिस्ट बनना पड़े तभी करियर आगे बनता है, नॉट ट्रू. एंड देयर इज अनदर बिलीफ दैट हाँ, अच्छी डिग्री होने से एंड कॉलेज के एकेडमिक्स में अच्छे नंबर आने से ही आप अच्छी अपॉर्चुनिटी क्रैक कर सकते हो बढ़िया कंपनीज में. अगेन, आई एम अ प्योर प्ले कॉन्ट्रारियन टू दैट. व्हाई? सो मैं अपने कॉलेज के डेज अगर वो आपको लेके चलूँ, तो आई स्टडीड एट IIIT ग्वालियर. इट इज अ गुड कॉलेज, नॉट अमंग द बेस्ट, स्पेशली फॉर द कोर्स दैट आई परसूड. मैंने लिया था बीटेक प्लस MBA, जिसके लिए हमारे कॉलेज में अब काफी बेहतर हो गया, पहले उतना नहीं था जब मैं वहां पढ़ रहा था. अब जब मैं इसकी बात करता हूँ, तो वहां पे जब हम पढ़ रहे थे, मेरे पहले सेमेस्टर में जो CGPA था आउट ऑफ 10, दैट वाज 7.7. नेक्स्ट सेमेस्टर 7.3, नेक्स्ट सेमेस्टर 7, नेक्स्ट सेमेस्टर 6.7. सो 0.3 से लगातार गिर रहा था. नेक्स्ट सेम 6.4, नेक्स्ट सेम 5. सो जैसे कोविड का ग्राफ था, कोविड के बाद हमारी इंडियन इकोनॉमी का लगातार डिक्लाइन आते आते एकदम बड़ा सारा स्टीप फॉल आया था. वो मेरा एकेडमिक करियर था. देन सडनली हमारे के शेप रिकवरी आया इकोनॉमी में, कोविड के बाद GDP में. मेरा भी वही था. मैंने MBA का जब शुरू हुआ, पहले सेमेस्टर में आई वेंट अप टू 8.4 CGPA, ऑल ऑफ 5 से सीधा 8.4, एंड देन मैं उस रेंज में रहा. पॉइंट इज कि मैं एकेडमिकली उतना कोई बहुत तोड़ू बंदा तो था नहीं. आई वाजंट क्रैकिंग इट आउट देयर, बट I am still able to basically get to good opportunities. I'm very, very fortunate enough for that. So, what have all my interviews been about? कि opportunities मेरे लिए खुल जाती हैं. अगर मैं किसी एवरेज कॉलेज से आ रहा हूँ, मैं किसी डोमेन में स्पेशलिस्ट नहीं हूँ, मेरे एकेडमिक हिस्ट्री भी उतनी कोई कमाल की नहीं रही है, तो मेरे इंटरव्यूज में ऐसा क्या होता है जो कि मेरे लिए दरवाजे खुल जाते हैं? ये की क्वेश्चन बनता है मेरे ख्याल से, एंड इसका आंसर यहाँ पे मिलता है. सो स्मार्ट क्यूब में जब मैं गया था, मेरे वहां पे जो इंटरव्यूज थे, इट वाज ऑल अबाउट गेस्टिमेट्स, पजल्स एंड डेप्थ ऑफ कॉन्टेक्स्ट. इन 3 चीजों पे मुझे टेस्ट किया गया था. गेस्टिमेट्स होते हैं जिसके अंदर आपको ये देखा जाता है कि ठीक है, वो आपको कुछ भी आपको क्वेश्चन नहीं कि बताओ पूरे नोएडा में हर महीने बिस्लरी की कितनी बॉटल्स बिकती होंगी. हाउ मेनी बॉटल्स ऑफ बिस्लरी आर सोल्ड इन नोएडा ईच मंथ. इट्स अ वाइल्ड गेस एस्टिमेट एक्सरसाइज. You have to basically show how do you approach this problem, because when you are in the real world, problems textbook solutions वाले तो नहीं आते ना. आउट ऑफ द ब्लू कोई प्रॉब्लम आएगा जिसका सोल्यूशन आउट ऑफ द कॉन्टेक्स्ट जाके आप ही को बनाना पड़ता है. यू आर द वन हु हैज टू बिल्ड अ सोल्यूशन फॉर इट. सो गेस्टिमेट्स इस तरह की चीजों को देखते हैं. मेरे को उसके लिए असेस किया गया था. पजल्स मेरे ऊपर थ्रो किए गए थे. एंड सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट होता है डेप्थ ऑफ कॉन्टेक्स्ट, कि ये दोनों एक्सरसाइज जब मैं कर रहा हूँ कि मैं कॉन्टेक्स्ट में कितना घुस रहा हूँ. सो एक होता है कि आपको एक क्वेश्चन दे दिया गया है एंड देन यू बेसिकली गो फॉर कि ठीक है मैं आंसर इसका निकालता हूँ. एक होता है यू आस्क देम बैक, आप उनसे पूछते हो कि अगर मैं ये सोचूं तो क्या होगा, आप लोग ये कैसे करते हैं. एंगेज दैट पर्सन. इट शोज दैट ओके यू वांट टू गो डीपर इनटू इट, यू वांट टू लर्न मोर अबाउट इट. सो स्मार्ट क्यूब में मेरा इंटरव्यू उसके बारे में था. व्हेन आई वेंट फॉर बेन, उसमें ये तीनों चीजें थी. उसके अलावा 2 और फैक्टर थे. नंबर 1 मुझसे पूछा गया व्हाई डिड आई वांट टू जॉइन बेन. उसमें मैंने ये डिस्प्ले किया कि हम व्हाई आई एम सो पैशनेट अबाउट इट. बट उसके बाद जो मैंने जो डिस्प्ले किया वो था क्यूरियोसिटी. मेरा जो वहां पे इंटरव्यू था वो ओवर हो गया था, सब कुछ डन था, अब मैं घर जा सकता था. बट आई स्टेड बैक. आई वेंट टू द इंटरव्यूअर एंड आस्क्ड हिम कि देयर आर 2 थिंग्स दैट आर गोइंग टू हैपन. वन, either I will be selected or I won't be selected. In case I won't be selected, here are the skill sets that I possess right now. Here are the tools that as a data analyst I've been using so far. What are the tools that you guys use? so that at least I can also explore what are areas that I lack in, and I can basically test myself in. I can learn those skills. Future के लिए अच्छा रहेगा. They like that part. There are a few other such examples which worked out in my favor. So curiosity played a major role. That okay, given I give a damn about this thing, given I care so much about this particular opportunity, maybe I would do well out there. So that was बेन का experience for me. उधर ये दो elements नहीं है. But जब मैं startup side आता हूँ, class plus में जब मैं अपना interviews वगैरह देता हूँ, there I was assessed on totally different sets of things. That was whether I'm empathetic or not. मैं कितना inquisitive हूँ चीज़ों को लेकर के, how many questions am I asking, how much do I want to learn about things, the way startup world works, the way this particular company works, way different things out here works. मेरे को असेस किया नैक फॉर डीप डाइव्स पे कि अगर कोई भी क्वेश्चन अगर या फिर कोई भी अगर मैं टॉपिक पे मैं घुस रहा हूँ तो मैं उसकी डीप में जा रहा हूँ क्या. फॉर इंस्टेंस वन ऑफ द एंटायर राउंड जो कि मेरा क्लास प्लस में इंटरव्यू में हुआ था, क्लास प्लस एडटेक स्टार्टअप है. मेरा पूरा इंटरव्यू हुआ था कि ब्राजील और इंडिया में बेसिकली शुगर इकोनॉमी कैसे चल रही है, शुगर के प्राइसेस कैसे अप डाउन हो रहे हैं, सप्लाई डिमांड में क्या क्या इश्यूज आ रहे हैं एंड कैसे चल रहा है. आई थिंक आई वाज सो इंटरेस्टेड इन दिस टॉपिक दैट आई डीप डाइव्ड इनटू इट. And there are a number of other such areas that I'm passionate about. I follow religiously, so I deep dive into them. I have a passion कि मेरे को उसका सब कुछ पता होना चाहिए उस टॉपिक पे, चाहे मैं उसमें करियर अपना बना रहा हूँ या नहीं बना रहा हूँ. उस पर किसी ने कुछ पूछा तो आई शुड नो एवरीथिंग अबाउट इट. आई एम सो मच इनक्विजिटिव अबाउट इट. वो डीप डाइव का जो एक नैक होता है उसके लिए मुझे असेस किया गया. बट इवन मोर इम्पोर्टेंट, मुझे असेस किया गया फ्रैंकनेस के लिए. अब जनरली हमसे पूछते हैं आप 5 साल बाद खुद को कहाँ देखना चाहते हो. कोई बोलता है कि हाँ मैं मैनेजर बनना चाहता हूँ, कोई बोलते हैं आई वांट टू बी दिस थिंग, आई वांट टू बी दैट. Some people say that okay, I want to do something of my own. Some people say that I want to see myself running a team of so many people into this own company. मेरा आंसर था बहुत फ्रैंक था, क्योंकि ये जो आंसर है वो जेनेरिक है, हमेशा सबको देते हैं. मेरा आंसर वो था जो कि मुझे एक्चुअल में चाहिए था. आई वांटेड इक्विटी, आई वांटेड ग्रोथ अपॉर्चुनिटी आउट हियर, सो दैट आई वुड बी क्रिएटिंग वेल्थ. मैं अपने 7 दिन देने के लिए रेडी हूँ, मैं मेहनत करने के लिए रेडी हूँ, बट आई वॉन्ट इक्वल अमाउंट ऑफ रेम्यूनरेशन इन रिटर्न, नॉट जस्ट इन टर्म्स ऑफ कैश. मैं फ्रैंक था इसको लेकर के. सम पीपल थिंक दैट इट बैकफायर्स, बट हियर इट वर्कड. व्हाई? पीपल एट क्लास प्लस दे अप्रिशिएट फ्रैंकनेस. सिमिलरली हसलर माइंडसेट. मेरे को इस चीज पे असेस किया गया कि हाउ मच ऑफ अ हसलर एम आई. बिकॉज नॉर्मल कंपनीज कैसे भी चल जाएं, स्टार्टअप्स ऐसे नहीं चल पाते. स्टार्टअप्स को चाहिए हसलर्स, जो कि ये ना देखे दिन है रात है, अगर काम है तो हमें तोड़ना है. We have to rug ourselves out, but we have to get this particular thing done. Get this done attitude जो होता है, without thinking कि ये मेरे स्टेज के बिलो है या ऊपर है, सही है गलत है, मेरे टाइम के बियॉन्ड है, मेरे डेजिग्नेशन के बियॉन्ड है, उन चीजों को हट के जब आप देखते हो तो उस पर टेस्ट किया गया. मुझे टेस्ट किया गया पैनिक टेस्टिंग. Yep. Do I panic about things or not? So ये बताने का क्या रीजन है कि मेरे कौन से इंटरव्यू किस टॉपिक पे हुए, किन चीजों को मेरे पे टेस्ट किया गया. उसका रीजन है ये बताने का कि इन तीनों में से किसी भी इंटरव्यू में मेरे एकेडमिक्स की बात नहीं की गई थी. ये बात नहीं की गई थी मैं किस कॉलेज से आ रहा हूँ. इट वॉज नेवर अबाउट दिस थिंग. इनफैक्ट क्लास प्लस में तो मेरा सीवी कभी मांगा ही नहीं गया. सीवी तक की जरूरत नहीं थी. एंड दैट इज वॉट दिस एंटायर स्लाइड इज अबाउट. No mention of academics, no mention of CVs, no mention of basically what college you come from. It is all about what kind of a person are you, how inquisitive are you, what do you bring to the table, are you ready to work hard or not, and also are you a sharp person or not, are you inquisitive or not. So totally different attributes हैं जो कि जरूरी नहीं है दिल्ली वाले को ही आएंगे, मुंबई वाले को आएंगे, ये भागलपुर की किसी बच्चे को भी आ सकता है. It is a trait that you have, that you build in yourself. So this session basically it is about how there are umpteen opportunities out there for hustlers who ask for more. Opportunities galore for people who ask for more. So उसको आंसर हम कैसे यहाँ कर रहे हैं. पॉइंट इज मेरा जो डेजिग्नेशन है ना क्लास प्लस में, दैट इज स्पेशल टास्क फोर्स. इट इज नॉट मैं मैनेजर हूँ कोई, या फिर आई एम सम ऑफिसर और एनीथिंग लाइक दैट. आई एम नो एनालिस्ट, आई एम स्पेशल टास्क फोर्स. ये डेजिग्नेशन किसी कंपनी में आपको सुनने को नहीं मिलेगा, ये क्लास प्लस में है. एंड मैं क्यों कह रहा हूँ कि अपॉर्चुनिटीज गलोर फॉर पीपल हु आस्क फॉर मोर इज बिकॉज दिस इज समथिंग जो कि पहले एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करता था. क्लास प्लस ने मेरे बनाया. माय फाउंडर्स बेसिकली क्रिएटेड दिस डेजिग्नेशन बिकॉज दे थॉट दैट वे आई कुड बी अ फिट फॉर दिस थिंग. एंड ये क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है? बिकॉज ऑफ दिस वन. मुझे रोल कैसे मिला? बिकॉज आई आस्क्ड फॉर इट, आई रीच्ड आउट. एंड इसके अलावा आई डायरेक्टली रीच्ड आउट टू फाउंडर्स ऑफ 30 डिफरेंट स्टार्टअप्स and people from 3 VC funds. Why this matters? Because लोग जनरली क्या करते हैं, करियर पेज पे जाके अप्लाई करते हैं एंड देन दे वेट फॉर इट कि कोई रिप्लाई आएगा 14 दिन में, 30 दिन में, कभी तो रिप्लाई आएगा. कई बार रेजिग्नेशन आया, कई बार रिजेक्शन आ जाता है. देन एट टाइम्स इट हैपेंस दैट ओके दे कॉल यू फॉर एन इंटरव्यू एंड देन यू गो बाय दैट साइकिल. I did not want to wait for it. I knew that I want to go into a startup. I had studied my bit over the past 2 years. I knew that these are the 5 sectors that I'm bullish on: edtech, e-healthcare, mobility play, space tech, and agri-tech. I was very clear about this thing कि ये 5 ही वो sectors है जिनमें मेरे को अपना career बनाना है. I began to follow different founders who I began to admire in these particular spaces, and I was so passionate about it that I began to directly also connect with a number of these founders, and a number of them I was following them. उनके पोस्ट आते हैं, मैं पढ़ता था. उनके कोई भी अपडेट आते हैं, मैं पढ़ता था. कुछ को मैं डायरेक्टली रीच आउट भी करके बोलता यार आपने ये किया, बड़ा कमाल का था, आई वांट टू नो मोर अबाउट इट. रिजल्ट, संजीव बिखचंदानी, नौकरी.com जो कंपनी है, इन्फोएज जो चलाती है, उसके फाउंडर, वन ऑफ द रिचेस्ट इंडियंस आउट देयर. मैंने कोल्ड ईमेल मैंने किया, मेरे को उनका बताया दैट ओके आई एम फॉरवर्डिंग योर सीवी टू सो एंड सो पर्सन इन माय टीम, दे विल बी रीचिंग आउट. वो अपॉर्चुनिटी इवेंचुअली टर्न आउट नहीं हुई. द थिंग इज, इंडिया का वन ऑफ द रिचेस्ट पर्सन आउट देयर, ही इज आल्सो रिस्पॉन्डिंग टू योर ईमेल्स. व्हाई? यू केयर टू आस्क फॉर इट. क्वेश्चन इज, कितने लोग हैं जो कि संजीव बिखचंदानी को इस चीज के लिए ईमेल करते होंगे यार मुझे आपके साथ काम करना है. यू आस्क फॉर इट, एट टाइम्स यू गेट इट. जो 30 स्टार्टअप के फाउंडर्स को मैंने रीच आउट किया था, उनमें से 11 लोगों के साथ मेरे इंटरव्यूज पर्सनली हुए. 11 में से 5 मेरे ऑफिस में कन्वर्ट हुए. उसके अलावा 3 और ऐसे फाउंडर्स हैं जिनसे आज तक मेरे कनेक्शंस हैं, डायरेक्टली उनसे बात होती है. आई कैन एनी डे रीच आउट टू देम फॉर सम गाइडेंस और एनीथिंग. दिस इज व्हाट यू गेट इफ यू आस्क फॉर इट. इसमें आपका कोई भी एक्यूमेंट नहीं टेस्ट किया जाता, आपको कॉलेज से आ रहे हो वो टेस्ट नहीं किया जाता. खाली इतना देखा जाता है, डू यू वांट इट. सो यू आस्क फॉर इट, यू गेट इट. आप मांगोगे नहीं, आपको नहीं मिलेगा. दैट इज व्हाट माय स्टोरी इज ऑल अबाउट. कि हाँ, हम पिवट्स कर रहे हैं, पिवट्स कर करके हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं. बार बार हम अपना करियर का स्पेशलिस्ट वाला जो टैग है उसको उठा के हम जर्नलिस्ट की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं कि हमें प्योर प्ले डेटा एनालिस्ट भी नहीं बनना है, हमें बिजनेस एनालिस्ट भी नहीं बनना है, हमें प्योर प्ले कुछ भी नहीं बनना है, हमें जर्नलिस्ट बनना है. एंड मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंटली हम मांग रहे हैं उसके लिए एंड हमें मिल रहा है. दैट इज ऑल व्हाट आई हैव गॉट. थैंक यू एवरीवन. Hello.
Hey Jayant. Hey, sorry, there was some issue from my side. So we had a question that was from me only. Actually, I had a question to ask you when you were discussing about the sugar industry and the questions you faced in class plus. So my question was how to handle these questions in journalist interviews when the topic is not one you have in-depth knowledge on. So, for example, if you didn't know anything about the sugar industry or the topic they're asking to do a guesstimate on. So I've seen these interview questions in several platforms. But what if you have absolutely no idea of that? For example, I don't know anything about the petrol consumption of our country or anything of that sort. So how do you go about actually framing that in your mind or tackling such kind of questions? Do you just say that it's not something you're familiar with, or do you actually try to frame it in a more strategic way?
Yeah, I think that is a beautiful question to ask. The reason is, so there was, I basically prior to my interview experiences, even my first interview, usse pehle, I had basically had a conversation with one of my college seniors who told me that there are 2 ways that you can go in an interview. One is you let the interviewer run the show, or you basically take it on yourself and run the show yourself. And always the interviewer is going to prefer it if you are going to run the show yourself. So how does that translate? मैंने engineering किया है. I did a BTech. I did a BTech thesis project. I never really worked in it. There are folks who were in my team who worked on it. And I think that is a tale about every second guy in any engineering college. And that is the reason why I never mention it in my CV as well. It is not important to mention everything in your CV that you have ever touched. Only put on your CV what you know you want a discussion to happen about. And every interviewer is going to be okay about it. If they ask, Ki, you did a BTech, tell me about that. I have been asked that before, and I was frank enough to tell them that, hey, I did pursue a BTech, but I only possess that knowledge set by my degree. My degree says that I have a BTech. I do not really endorse that. So if you want to hire me for that, I'm not the right guy. I'm warning you before. And it works. People always love the frankness. Number one. Secondly, whenever basically my interviews have happened, the sugar thing happened or the petroleum consumption, something related to that also was discussed in another interview. It was all because I myself went on to mention those things in one example or another that we were discussing. So for instance, मुझे एक गेस्टिमेट दिया गया था जिसमें बेसिकली मैं इंडिया के बेसिकली में पेट्रोल कंजम्पशन के ऊपर कुछ मैं बता रहा था. एंड generally guesstimates में क्या होता है, we take certain assumptions, we ask the interviewer the questions कि can I assume this thing, does this thing happen in the market, okay then this is how I'm going to go about it, this is my estimation, this is the number that I'm taking कि ठीक है 1 लीटर पेट्रोल का इतना रेट होता होगा एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा, इतना मार्केट हो गया. आई ब्रॉट इन सर्टेन इनसाइट्स जो कि मुझे पता है कि ठीक है सऊदी अरेबिया में ये होता है, यहाँ पे ये होता है, तो वो वाले मॉडल में इनकॉर्पोरेट कर सकते हैं ये. एंड सडनली द इंटरव्यू वांटेड टू नो हाउ डू आई नो अबाउट दीस थिंग्स. एंड ऑल ऑफ अ सडन मूविंग ऑन वी वर डिस्कसिंग हाउ बेसिकली द embargo on the Venezuelan market, the sanctions out there imposed by the US government are leading to basically a crunch in the market, and how the Iranian sanctions are not really working out because of the Chinese interventions, and how China is basically buying the Iranian oil despite the sanctions, etc., etc. That is what my interview basically turned out about. It had nothing to do about basically क्या उन्होंने मुझसे पूछा था. No, I myself brought that topic up. So the key is bring up topics only which you can own up.
Got it. So basically control your interview in that direction.
आपसे कुछ भी पूछें तो इंश्योर कि आप वही वाला आंसर दे रहे हो जिसके ऊपर आप आगे आधे घंटे का डिस्कशन कर सकते हो. अदरवाइज इट डजंट वर्क इन योर फेवर एवर. डोंट लेट देम आस्क क्वेश्चंस, गिव देम द क्वेश्चंस.
Got it. That's a great tip, I guess. And sorry, my throat is not really well. So Guna has a question over here. I'm going to add that to the screen. What are a few things we need to keep in mind during non-technical interviews where you don't know what to look out for? For example, an interview with a startup founder with no agenda.
Read about the founder. Always. Read about his entire history, where he did college from, what kind of projects he pursued. So for instance, I interviewed at a company which is basically recently acquired by Tata Group. It was recently, majority stake was acquired by Tata Group. They are into e-pharmacy space. I don't think I even need to tell more information. And my entire first round was all about how passionate I was to join. I was about working with one of the co-founders who had basically done some great amount of work back in the US. How he reached there was a whole together different inspiring story. He was an average candidate. He basically could not make it to IIT in the first attempt. Then he basically joined another college. Then he basically bunked that entire time. He pursued his studies on his own. Then he went to IIT. Later on, he went on and pivoted and joined a gaming company after a brief stint at another company. Then gaming company called Zynga. He was one of the key persons who was basically building a product called Farmville. Farmville is a product which people of my generation, they were exploited because of it. So lovely product what they built out there. And then leaving all of that great career aside, he made another pivot. He moved back to India. He did something else. मैं अपने इंटरव्यू में ये बातें कर रहा था. The thing that came out was that, okay, I was so passionate about this thing, working with this guy, learning from him, that I wanted to be there at any cost. Even if I was not a fit for it, I would be a fit for it if they would have hired me within a span of a month or two. मैं सब कुछ सीख लेता, मुझे कुछ नहीं, मेरे को उसके साथ काम करना है. My interviews was about that. So my answer would be learn about the founder, because this is not just a thing that happened in this particular one interview. This is something that I ensured in all the interviews that I went for when I was basically making a pivot to the startup world. All 11 companies that I interviewed with, every time I had a very solid understanding of who are the founders, where do they come from, what is their background, etc., etc.
That's a great tip. So I think background research is important. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing to add. So startups में क्या होता है? Generally, in fact, mostly the investors, they are not betting on the company itself. They are also betting a large chunk on the founder. That this is the person who can really drive the show out here. Idea तो बहुत लोगों के पास है, but this is the guy who can turn this idea into a full-fledged monetizable big business. So it is important that आप खाली स्टार्टअप ज्वाइन नहीं कर रहे, यू आर नॉट ज्वाइनिंग अ कंपनी, बट यू आर ऑल्सो गोइंग टू बी वर्किंग विद दिस पर्टिकुलर पर्सन, इनफैक्ट ओनली विद दिस पर्टिकुलर पर्सन. वो जो चाहेगा कंपनी उस डायरेक्शन में जाएगी. यू हैव टू लर्न अबाउट दैट पर्सन. इफ यू कैन डू दैट, any interview would be much easier for you.
Great. So, audience, please keep your questions coming. But because we have some time, I'm going to take this into a more of a conversation route. I'm really excited about the topic you are currently discussing because I'm in that stage where I talk to random people, who are really doing really amazing things. And where do you take that conversation to? And something that I have really heard from people is some of us are really comfortable with setting up these random calls, right? Like a cold emailing or just telling someone, hey, I want to talk to you and I want to work with you. But there are a huge bunch of people who are not really comfortable doing that. Like they might not feel like reaching out to someone they absolutely don't know over LinkedIn or just mailing them. So how do you actually get that strength to face rejections when they don't respond, and just taking that first step to reach out to someone, which I think several people actually struggle with?
So, Rita, I think that number one, if I were to reach out to you that okay, I want to work at Skysil, what I would do would be that I won't write a basically 3 paragraph essay. I'd be very precise, write a 140 character message that, and I would compress everything into it. That okay, this is what I'm doing right now. I have read about what you have been doing, and this is the reason I like it, and I want to join you and explore opportunities. End of story. That would be my message. नो फाउंडर हैज गॉट अ टाइम कि ठीक है, आउट ऑफ द ब्लू उसके किसी का मैसेज आता है, वो लंबा चौड़ा पूरा मैसेज पढ़ेगा एंड देन बोलेगा हाँ ये बंदा मुझे चाहिए, बिकॉज दे हैव सो मेनी मोर थिंग्स टू डू. एंड एट द सेम टाइम पीपल हु से दैट ओके, आई फेस डिफिकल्टी कि हाउ डू आई रीच आउट, मुझे कोल्ड ईमेल करने में वो नहीं है, कंफर्टेबल फील नहीं होता. थिंग इज यार, आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी चाहिए, यू गो टू एनी एक्सटेंट फॉर इट. फिर आपका कंफर्ट जोन के बाहर ही तो जाना होता है. Whenever you want to achieve anything big, you have to go out of your comfort zone. I mean, think about Harita and Akshita and Shashrika. They have a great job at Microsoft, earning good packages. I'm very sure about that. I don't know what they are, by the way. So, great packages, and then basically in the weekends they can leisure and everything if they want. Yet here they are hustling it out, burning themselves कि हाँ हमें कुछ और करना है यार, we want to build something of their own. इसके लिए तो है ना. तो आई थिंक दैट इज बेसिकली द थिंग जिसके लिए आप रीच आउट आप करते हो. वो जब अपने कंफर्ट जोन के बाहर जा रहे हैं तो हमें भी जाना पड़ेगा. वी कैन रीच आउट. ये तो बेर में नहीं हो कि हम किसी को कोल्ड ईमेल डाल के छोड़ रहे हैं कि आपके पास काम करना है, ये रीजन से करना है, आप बताओ. इवन व्हेन आई रोट टू संजीव बिखचंदानी, आई डिड नॉट राइट अ बिग एसे. आई बेसिकली रोट जस्ट 2 lines. Hi sir, I am working in this particular company in this domain and have been following you for a long while, and I want to work with you in this particular vertical of your company. Please let me know if there are any opportunities out there. Would be utterly grateful. That was all. More or less यही वर्ड से कुछ वर्ड्स आगे पीछे होंगे, but this was the message I sent. And I did not get a reply, by the way, for the first 25 days. It was, I think, only 26th or 27th day that suddenly a reply came from Sanjeev Bikhchandani. I was like, oh my god, this actually works. And it was then that I began to basically, अब तो सबको मैसेज करेंगे. It doesn't matter कि ठीक है कोल्डली कर रहा हूँ मैं. I messaged to around 30 people, 25 responded, and 7-8 basically said that okay, kindly connect with this person, send them your resume, CV, and this would basically be taken forward. ठीक है. 11 basically 11 cases में वो था कि ठीक है rounds happened. 3 ने तो ये भी कहा, here is my number, call me tomorrow at this particular time, या call me at this particular time, या फिर ये मुझसे पूछ लिया what is your number, I'll be reaching out. 3 से मैं डायरेक्टली मेरे कॉल पे बात हुई, फाउंडर डायरेक्टली मेरे को अपना नंबर शेयर कर रहा है. So much is possible if you just reach out. So you have to decide if cold emailing or cold reach out is that much out of control, out of your comfort zone. But I think it is totally fine.
But I'm really guilty of what you just mentioned of writing long essays to people who I'm really impressed with, like, because I just want to convey how impressed I am with their work. So it just never ends. So I am really guilty of doing that. That's a great tip.
Just to point out, I was also doing the same thing earlier. I read a tweet by, I think it was by David Sherman or something like that. I don't remember the exact name. He had mentioned that don't expect a founder to read a 400-word essay, but you can expect him to read a 140-word tweet, because these days every founder is doing just that on Twitter.
Right, totally agree. Also, I had one other question that when we are talking about college students specifically, many of our audience are mainly college students, right? It's not very easy to identify what they want to do. So many of them are in the engineering stream and they are figuring their way out, like you said, in a BTech degree, right? So they do know there are opportunities outside of engineering, but what exactly to pursue? For example, even in your case, you reached out to people, but I personally have found that certain people will be like, what do you want to do though? I mean, you want to work with me, but what do you want to do with me? So how do you tackle that? How do you come up with the answer of what is that one career role I'm looking for? How do you bring that concreteness? Or is that okay? Is that okay to try out things and figure that out?
I mean, I think that trying out things and to see that it works out is a great strategy because let's face it, not everyone has an answer, especially in a country like us. All most I mean, this is a stereotype that I have about myself as well, that most people go into engineering thinking कि यार IIT के इस बच्चे का तो करोड़ रुपए का पैकेज लगता है इंजीनियरिंग लेने से, मैं भी चले जाता हूँ. And generally that is what they choose and get into engineering in the first place. And then when they enter it, they learn, okay, engineering में तो ये होता है, this is what engineering is. That is what happened to me. I joined ट्रिपल IIT ग्वालियर. आई वाज लाइक कि ठीक है, बीटेक करेंगे, एमटेक करेंगे, फिर किसी बढ़िया कंपनी में जाएंगे, 60 लाख का पैकेज लेंगे, वहीं से बैठेंगे. एंड आई हैव अ कॉलेज सीनियर शुभांकर मोहन with whom I was sitting in his room during the very first semester. 3-4 महीने में थोड़ा कंफर्टेबल हो जाते हैं सीनियर्स के साथ. मैं बैठा था, उन्होंने पूछा, तुमने तुझे क्या लगता है यहाँ से क्या करके निकलेगा? बोला, निकलेंगे सर 60 लाख का पैकेज लेके मजे से, 50-60 लाख का आराम से, फिर मजे करेंगे लाइफ में. एंड ही laughed over me like crazy. And today I also laugh at that version of myself. Well, okay, this is not how things basically work. And in fact, just a year and a half into engineering, I was like, this is not what I want to do. ये हो जाता है. तो 60 लाख का ड्रीम तो छोड़ो, मैं तो इंजीनियरिंग की तरह से नहीं करना चाहता. Then thereafter, I completed my engineering bit, but I basically decided I won't be pursuing MTech. I said that मैं MBA करूँगा. Why? Because उस rest of one and a half year में, I began to study economics. I began to study public policy. I also began to study a lot of business cases or business studies and those things. I began to find them very interesting. So in my third year, I basically pursued my first internship in the public policy arena, and I parallelly I also began to read a lot. I also began to write a lot, and eventually in my fourth year, I went out to basically publish my first book. So एक तरफ मैं पब्लिक पॉलिसी में अपना करियर बनाने की सोच रहा हूँ, एक तरफ ये कर रहा हूँ. देन इन माय फिफ्थ ईयर इटसेल्फ मैंने एक पब्लिकेशन है मीडिया स्पेस में, उसके लिए मैंने लिखना शुरू कर दिया. एंड आई वाज लाइक, यार मीडिया में भी स्कोप तो बड़ा अच्छा है. आई डिसाइडेड दैट आई वांट टू बी अ जर्नलिस्ट. सो इन माय फिफ्थ ईयर, पैरेलल टू प्रमोटिंग माय बुक and reading a lot about economics and these things, I had begun to basically explore opportunities at different media houses. Not a lot of people know about this thing in my life, but this is what I was doing. बट ये करते करते इस में और जाना, तो मेरे को ये पता चला कि यार ठीक है, एक बार अपने सीनियर से बात करते हैं कि अगर ये नहीं होता तो क्या करना है. बिकॉज लेट्स फेस इट, आई वाज समवन जो कि इसमें काम कर रहा था, तो मतलब कि मज़ा आ रहा था, बट मज़े से लाइफ तो नहीं बनती, करियर तो नहीं बनता. प्लस आज मज़ा आ रहा है, ज़रूरी नहीं है कि जब मैं फील्ड पे उतरना पड़ेगा. अभी तो मैं अपने रूम में लैपटॉप पे बैठ के रिसर्च करके लिख देता हूँ, तो मुझे आएगा ही नहीं आएगा मज़ा. तो मैंने पिवट मार लिया एंड आई वेंट इनटू कि ठीक है, एनालिटिक्स में घुसते हैं, दिस इज अ हॉट स्ट्रीम. क्यों? एंड में गोल तो होता है ना पैसे कमाने, तो उसमें घुस गए. बट देन वो करते करते पता चला कंसल्टिंग होती है, ये होता है, कंसल्टेंट्स को ये होता है. तो मेरे को एक तरफ ये मेरे को आइडिया लगा कि अच्छा, कंसल्टेंट्स को ट्रैवल बहुत करने मिलता है. सो आई कॉल्ड अप अनदर सीनियर ऑफ माइन हु वाज अ कंसल्टेंट एंड KPMG, अश्मीत सिक्का. एंड मैंने उन्हें सब कुछ बताया कि मेरे को करना है सर, तो सर आप रेफरल डाल दो, यहाँ रूल निकला है. एंड ही वाज लाइक कि अच्छा, तो मतलब कि क्या करते, क्या कंसल्टेंट, तेरे को पता है क्या? मैं बोला सर कंसल्टेंट मतलब सर स्ट्रैटेजीज इंप्लीमेंट करते हैं. तो ही वाज लाइक, ओके स्ट्रैटेजी इंप्लीमेंट करते हैं, बट व्हाट कंसल्टेंट्स आर डिफरेंट काइंड्स. एंड आई डिड नॉट नो दैट कंसल्टेंट्स आर आल्सो डिफरेंट काइंड. कि टैक्स कंसल्टेंट अलग होता है, मैनेजमेंट कंसल्टेंट अलग होता है, टेक्नोलॉजी कंसल्टेंट अलग होते हैं, एंड सो ऑन. तो ही वाज लाइक कि तेरे को बनना क्यों है? बोला सर मतलब टू बी फ्रैंक, मेरे को सर ये लगता है कि कंसल्टेंट्स की सर बहुत मौज वाली लाइफ होती है, सर ट्रैवल वगैरह करते हैं, बड़े मजे करते हैं, मेरे को सर वो करना है. एंड ही वाज लाइक ठीक है, send me your CV, I'll put a referral for you. I'm pretty sure he would not have put my referral in, number one. Secondly, even if someone would have given such a reply to me later on, when I went on to join a consulting firm as an analyst, I would not have applied a referral for that guy either. This was such a wrong thing to do. But thing is, gradually for उस direction में उन्होंने जब ये मुझे बोला कि ठीक है, मेरे को उनके रेफरेंस समझ आया कि ये रेफरल नहीं मिलने वाला. I grew inquisitive कि ठीक है, यहाँ क्या होता है. And I really began to study a lot. Next 6 months, I studied a lot about it, and eventually I made a shift to consulting. सो यार पिवट पे पिवट्स कर रहे हैं, ऐसे कोई फिक्स मुझे भी नहीं पता क्या करना था, करते जा रहे थे। इतना पता है कि थर्ड ईयर अराउंड से कॉलेज के मुझे स्टार्टअप की तरफ काफ़ी इंटरेस्ट आने लगा था। आई बिगैन टू स्टडी अ लॉट। सो कॉलेज जब मैं एक्सिट करने वाला था, एट दैट टाइम आई बिगन टू वंडर कि इस तरफ अपॉर्चुनिटी एक्सप्लोर करनी चाहिए। बट वन ऑफ माई सीनियर्स, नवेद्य जैन, ही हैड कॉल्ड मी आउट ऑफ डूइंग सो। He told me that startup is a buzzword. It sounds very cool to work at a startup, but startup in a fintech space and startup in the agri-tech space do very different things. What do you want to build your career into? I did not have an answer. So over those 2 years, when my career had just begun, I began to read a lot, explore a lot, and I learned about TK, what sector has what opportunities, what is the outlook. And that is based on what eventually I realized that, okay, मेरे को इन 5 सेक्टर में से किसी में अपना करियर बनाना है, इन स्टार्टअप वर्ल्ड में ही बनाना है, एंड इवेंचुअली आई केम हियर। सो मुझे भी नहीं पता था क्या करना है, पिवट पे पिवट कर करके हम यहाँ तक आ गए। आई डोंट थिंक कि इसमें कुछ भी बुरा है इस रेसिपी में, बिकॉज नॉट एवरीवन नोज व्हाट दे वांट। सबको नहीं पता होता जस्ट 8th क्लास में कि हाँ मुझे मिस इंडिया बनना है या फिर मुझे पायलट बनना है। मुझे नहीं पता था, मैं तो ऐसे आया हूँ।
Totally agree. Actually, for all the students who are listening to this, ये पूरा कहानी सुन के ऐसा लग रहा था कि Jayant has been doing this for a long time. Like, he spent a lot of his career, but the truth is he's just been out of college for what? Very few years, right? You're just 1 year senior to me. So he started very early while he was in college itself. He's explored so much, so many pathways in this short span of time. So I think that's also very critical to be intentional about, trying out things and making the best use of your time. And I know several people you just mentioned this in this conversation. So if any of them are watching, Shubhankar sir or Sikas or anyone, hi to everyone. And I have a question from Guna here, which even I am thinking, when is the next book coming? So I was one of the first readers of your first book. So when is the next one coming?
Yeah, so for the people who don't know, Harita was one of the very first readers of my debut book, Redemption of a Son. And Guna, the reader, शायद उन्होंने भी पढ़ा, I don't know. And next book कब आ रही है? I'd begun to write the next book, but lately I've not been paying much concentration to that, so I must be given some beating for that, to be frank. But yes, it is in the works. Hopefully, probably another year, and by then it will be out. Yeah.
What
That is the
genre is it?
again memoir. My first book was a memoir. It was about
Right.
my relationship with my father, and still writing a memoir. Let us see how it goes. Yeah.
Definitely. So another thing I had in my mind was you mentioned you wanted to explore the startup space very early in your college days itself. So many people face this dilemma, right? MNC versus startup, which is better. I know there is a lot of boilerplate answers for that. Work-life balance versus money versus blah blah blah, all of those things. But what was your take, or what was it that drove you to the startup space, or being a hustler and trying out this stuff, right? So rather than the stability which your 60 lakh package dream back in college might have given you, what was it that drove you to a startup?
Yeah, so basically, when I was towards the very end leg of my college life, the reason why I wanted to get into startups was because a number of my friends were getting into that space and were attracting very, very lucrative packages. So there was a lure into it, because of which I thought that startup में काम करते हैं अच्छा पैसा बनेगा. However, later on when I actually began to study about it, I realized that okay, कोई कंपनी अगर साल का 20-30% अगर कंपाउंड करती है 20-30%, दे हेराल्डेड कि यार ये तो अगली HDFC हो सकती है, इट कुड बी द नेक्स्ट इन्फोसिस, इट इज ग्रोइंग सो फैंटास्टिकली फॉर लास्ट 5-6 years. In startup world, a company compounds at that rate on a monthly basis, at times on weekly basis. It's crazy out here. What strategies at a traditional company would work for maybe a long term, out here you're growing so fast that you have to keep on building new strategies, because a strategy can get you from basically say 0 to 100. Then from 100 to 1000 you need another strategy or another ideas, another pilots. 1000 से 100,000 तक जाने के लिए अलग ही पूरे मशक्कत होती है, एंड दैट इज व्हाट वी आर डूइंग आउट हियर. एंड ये एक्सपीरियंस ट्रेडिशनल कंपनीज नहीं देती है. मेरा ऐसा बायस है, आई हैव माय बायस, एंड मैं वो प्योरली बता रहा हूँ, बट मेरा ऐसा मानना है कि स्टार्टअप वर्ल्ड में ये जो एक्सपोजर आपको मिलता है वो आपको ट्रेडिशनल कंपनीज नहीं देती है. सो मेरा ये भी इसलिए मानना है इसी वजह से दैट अ पर्सन हु हैज वर्कड इन अ अर्ली स्टेज और अ ग्रोथ स्टार्टअप फॉर अ गुड चंक ऑफ टाइम, उसको MBA की जरूरत नहीं है. अगेन मेरा बायस है, मैं वो पहले क्लियर कर रहा हूँ. बट मेरे को इतना देखा कि ठीक है, इतनी सॉलिड ग्रोथ होती है, इतना ज्यादा यहाँ पे एडवेंचर हो रहा है, एंड दे आर परस्यूइंग बिजनेस मॉडल्स जो कभी थिंकेबल भी नहीं थे. दे आर डूइंग बिजनेस द वे कोई सोच भी नहीं सकता था कि हाँ ऐसे भी बिजनेस हो सकता है. इट परसूड मी कि ठीक है यार, इसमें जाते हैं ना, बाकी तो लोग कर ही रहे हैं, इसमें अपना फ्यूचर बनाते हैं.
So controversial follow-up question to that. Matlab, they are trying new business models. I mean, I'm probably going way off topic here, but again, we have time, and I don't see another question in the comments, so I'm just going to take leverage of that. So you're saying, people are trying out different business models, and we all know several startups are, in a cash drain phase, and they are pumping in money to get more customers and things like that. So most of them are not tried and tested. Many people talk about if it's a startup bubble, will it burst, or where's the end going, and things like that. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a question or just looking for your opinion. But uh, you would of course feel an instability in career, right? From the perspective of like with the startup I'm working in. If it's, let's say that if it's a middle stage startup, then definitely fine. But if it's at a seed stage or a very early stage startup, there would definitely be concerns of is it a stable company? Would I have a job after a couple of months? Or what about the business model they are following? Is it going to work out in the long run? Things like that. So, any take of yours on that topic?
So I have a very interesting opinion on this thing. Okay. Generally, people my age or even the viewers of this particular session out here would be basically very young people, not more than 30 max, probably. Now, at this age, अगर हम say I join a seed stage startup, I work there 2 years, the startup fails. I would have a tremendous lot of knowledge about how this company was being built, how a company is built, how do people chase growth, what are different strategies that a startup basically goes for, how do hustlers basically work. कंपनी फेल हो गई, बट व्हाट आई हैव लर्नड जस्ट 2 साल के अंदर इतनी यंग एज में मैं आगे कहीं पे भी जाके उसको यूज कर सकता हूँ. एंड ये जब मैं काम कर रहा था मोस्ट लाइकली मेरे को कुछ ना कुछ सैलरी मिल ही रहा था. एंड अगर मेरे पास इक्विटी थी तो मान लो कि इक्विटी वाला कंपोनेंट चला गया, बट अगर ये स्टार्टअप वर्क कर जाता उस इक्विटी की वर्थ 4 साल के अंदर 40x हो सकती थी. एंड मैं 7-8 साल के अंदर मैं रिटायर होने लायक हो जाता. सो इमेजिन करो 35 की एज में तुम रिटायर होकर आराम से बैठे हो, अपने दोस्तों को कॉल कर रहे हो, वो सुबह के 9 से लेकर के रात के 9 बजे तक काम कर रहे हैं, एंड यू आर लाइक आई एम जस्ट हॉलीडेइंग इन मनाली. Just think about it. I mean, there are people in my space, my horizon, who I know. There are 2 people who are not working anymore, and they are in the range of 35 to 40 years. Why? Because their equity payouts from a company called Flipkart were so handsome for them. They don't have to work anymore. They are actively investing their earnings from there, and they are compounding it. So, क्या मुझे सी स्टेज स्टार्टअप में काम करना चाहिए, ग्रोथ स्टेज स्टार्टअप में काम करना चाहिए? आई वुड से यस, गो फॉर इट. सो अर्ली इन दी करियर यू आर गेटिंग दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी. इट इज नॉट अ रिस्क फैक्टर. यहाँ का जो एक्सपीरियंस है वो कोई भी कंपनी आपको रिवॉर्ड करके कल को आपको ले लेगी, क्योंकि आप जो काम करके आ रहे हो नॉर्मल कंपनीज को वो बंदे चाहिए, और वो स्टार्टअप ने आपको सिखाया, इवन इफ वो स्टार्टअप फेल भी हो जाता है तो भी. एंड इट इज अमेजिंग. इतनी जल्दी इतना सीखने के लिए मैं तो कभी भी जाऊंगा.
Definitely. So for all the students, try out things, explore all of these opportunities, and definitely take risks when you can take risks. I love this conversation. And Jay, any last words from your side? We'll wrap this up soon. And students, if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments soon before we wrap it up. Yeah. So any last words from your end?
I mean, all I know is that I'm learning a lot from my founders out here, and there are a few quotes that they say which I love a lot. One is that हम जैसे एक होता है ना, वी टेक अ टारगेट एंड वी एम फॉर इट. एक होता है कि हम टारगेट अचीव करते हैं, नहीं करते हैं, फिर उसे एक्सीड करते हैं. नाउ टारगेट अचीवमेंट इज एन अचीवमेंट ओनली वी एक्सीड द टारगेट. अचीविंग द टारगेट इज बेसिकली अ बेयर मिनिमम. वो तो हमने गोल सेट किया है. सो आई लव दैट पर्टिकुलर आइडिया. सो यहाँ पे टारगेट जो है हमारा वो है एक सॉलिड करियर बनाना. तो डोंट लिमिट योरसेल्फ टू एनी कॉन्स्टेंट्स कि ठीक है मुझे ऐसे ही करना है वैसे ही करना है. योर गोल वुड बी एन अचीवमेंट अगर आप उस टारगेट को एक्सीड करते हो. तो आपका एक्सीड करने का एक ही तरीका है, गो आउट ऑफ योर कंफर्ट जोन. कोल्ड ईमेल करना है, कोल्ड ईमेल करो. किसी से गाइडेंस लेना है, शर्म मत करो कि यार उसको क्या लगेगा कि मैं 4th ईयर में आ गया हूँ एंड मैं उससे ये सवाल पूछ रहा हूँ. आई आस्क क्वेश्चंस एंड आई एम सो ग्रेटफुल टू द पीपल हु आई रीच्ड आउट टू. इवन इफ आई वाज आस्किंग स्टूपिड क्वेश्चंस, इवन इफ रिस्पॉन्सेस फ्रॉम वन ऑफ दोस सीनियर्स मेड मी क्राई दैट डे, whatever were the consequences, today I am grateful that okay they give me a reality check जिसके मैं यहाँ तक पहुँचा हूँ. वो इसलिए हो कि मैं अपने कंफर्ट जोन के बाहर गया. And again, when opportunity comes, डोंट थिंक कि यार इसके लिए मुझे हफ्ते में 6 दिन काम करना पड़ेगा या फिर 7 दिन करना पड़ेगा, इसलिए मुझे ये करना पड़ेगा. Because it is not about working 6 days or 7 days or 5 days or 4 days. It is about how far you can get in a very short span. And उसके लिए अगर आपको कंफर्ट जोन के बाहर जाना पड़ता है तो व्हाई नॉट. सो गो आउट ऑफ योर कंफर्ट जोन, बी अ हसलर. दैट इज ऑल व्हाट आई एम लर्निंग टू डू. अगेन मैं ये नहीं कह रहा हूँ मैं वो कर रहा हूँ, आई एम लर्निंग टू डू. बिकॉज अब मैं उस स्पेस में आया हूँ तो मुझे लग रहा है कि यार यही फ्यूचर है. हसलर्स की डिमांड है, हसलर्स का फ्यूचर है. एंड हसल हम कर रहे हैं, हसल आप भी करो एंड कभी साथ में काम करेंगे.
Great. Thank you so much, Jayant, for doing this. This was a great session. I love the conversation part of it as well. So thank you so much for joining us. We will be coming back with our next speaker, Dravisha, by 5:30. She also has a wonderful and a colorful profile, just like Jayant, varied career paths. And I'm really excited to have her as well. But meanwhile, please take a break and we'll be back at 5:30. Thank you so much, Jayant.
Awesome. Thank you, Harita. Thanks, Skysil.
Bye. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I hope everyone can hear me. So, we are at MITS and SRCASW with Jayant and Dravisha. So, we had an absolutely great session on startups and hustlers and how you can reach out to people and grab those opportunities without having to wait for them to come to you. In the previous session with Jayant, and we have yet another absolutely great speaker lined up for our second part of today's session on growth beyond traditional technology roles. She's someone I have been following for quite some time, and she has an absolutely great presence on social media platforms. She's doing some really great work in the marketing space and several other roles which does not fall under the traditional technology career path. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have Dravisha over here. I'll just bring her up on screen and I'll let her introduce herself and get started with the session without a lot of waiting. Super thrilled to have you here, Dravisha. Hey.
Same here. Thank you so much, Harita, for the wonderful start to the event. I'm super excited to have you all join us for this small event, or perhaps a workshop, I should say. So be ready to engage with the event that I've planned for you moving forward. But just to talk a little bit about myself, I love teaching personal branding to students. That's the reason I host these small events around personal branding for college students. This also comes from a little bit of personal experience that I've had throughout my journey so far. So when I started my engineering back in 2017, I was just another kid who was puzzled and confused with what to do. So I was like, why not start a LinkedIn profile and just see how it goes from there? And at that point in time, none of the college students were on LinkedIn. So that was the place I was coming from, and that's how I decided that okay, let's experiment a bit and let's start writing on LinkedIn. And that's how my journey in personal brand kickstarted. But just coming quickly to today, I'm spearheading growth for a media tech company called The Signal. So feel free to check them out if you get time or if you like reading around various topics such as business, startups, economy, policy, etc. So that's what I'm doing currently. And I'd love for you to engage throughout the session via the slides that I prepared for all of you. Um, so I think you all can see the page, which is on quiz.com. I'm not sure, so you all can give me a quick heads up if you can see this in the comment section, of course. So feel free to go to this website, joinmyquiz.com, and enter the code so that you can also access the slides that I've prepared for you. And there'll be a bit of Q&A, polls, etc. to help you guys understand certain topics. And I'm really looking forward to engaging with you. We won't be able to start the session if you don't join, so make sure you join via this website and the code that you see on the screen. I'm gonna wait for 2 minutes before you all can set that up for yourself. I'm gonna wait for a bit so that everybody can join in. If you're on your phone, you can just add a new tab on your browser and just quickly sign in. And if you're on your laptop, well and good, you can just pop up another window and make sure you join. Meanwhile, if you have any issues or you're not able to join the link, just comment. Okay, 4 of you have joined. Okay, I see 7 of you. Okay, I see 11 of you have joined. Okay, so 14 of you have joined. I think we can start and people can later join in if they join late. Okay. All right, so today's event is mostly going to be around how you can leverage personal branding for early career growth. Now, these two words might sound a little different to you. What is personal branding? What is early career growth, etc.? So I'll just briefly talk about two words to explain you what this really means. So personal branding comes into play in the hiring process after you've applied and even before you've applied to a certain company, both pre-hiring and post-hiring. So what happens is if you apply for a certain position, the HR might want to check, okay, how is your digital media presence? What does your LinkedIn say about you? What does your Twitter say about you? What does your website say about you? All these factors really give the HR an authenticity about you, what you've done so far, your proof of work, etc., which itself your resume cannot really tell them. So having a great personal brand comes into play there. And when it comes to pre-hiring, your great personal brand can also be a magnet to attract great opportunities. For example, in my early career, for me, most of the jobs that I did so far in my first and second year and also third year of college were mostly because I could build a great personal brand for myself and I didn't have to apply as such for any opportunities out there or for the matter of fact do any unpaid internships, right? So that's why having a great personal brand is very important to you, so that founders who are hunting for interns or even part-time professionals can reach out to you seeing that, okay, this person has a great personal brand and is really proficient in XYZ, right? And what I mean by early career growth here is that having an exponential early career growth is important. Why? Because let's say you start your first job at merely 30,000 a month, right? Your job is paying you hardly 30,000 a month because you just went through a normal regular process which other students go through and you didn't really have a great personal brand, right? Your increment in your salary will be much slower. For example, your next job might pay you 30, after 30, 40,000 or maybe 50,000 at max, and your salary increment will be very slow and you'll land into roles that do not really have high responsibility or high growth. Whereas if you start your early career growth kickstarted by your personal branding, you might land a higher salary than other students because evidently you will be standing out from the crowd, right? So which is why let's say if your first job is starting from, let's say, 70,000 a month, then your salary increment will be much faster in the coming years and you land into positions that have high growth and high responsibility, which is why if you loop all of this, they all go hand in hand, right? So let me just quickly go to the next slide. So I actually have a question for you. What is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the word personal branding, right? What is the first word that comes to your mind? You have a minute. Okay. Network, logo, LinkedIn influencers, growth, frame. Okay. Opportunities come to you. That's lovely. Dravisha, that's sweet. Learning in public. Well, yes, with personal branding, you also get to learn a lot because you spend most of your time also building a personal brand that involves a lot of learning and giving away your learning as well. Networking. So I see that most of you have a decent idea about personal branding. And I'll quickly take you through 6 steps on how you can leverage personal branding for early career growth moving forward in this presentation. Portfolio, that is a very integral part of your personal branding. For example, if you're a designer or a developer, if you don't have a portfolio, you can't really build a great personal brand because that'll be faffing without proof of work. So don't do that. Okay. Network. All right, so let's proceed. Let's close the Q&A. So I feel that most of you have a decent idea of what personal branding is. Now, moving forward, I want to understand. Let the question come. Why do you think we need a personal brand? This is just to gauge why you think we need a personal brand today moving forward. I want all of you to participate. I can see who's participating and who's not, so make sure you do participate. Okay, great. So most of you have voted for to build an audience and help people. Now, what if I tell you it's all four? But mostly to build an audience and help people, so you have the correct idea there, right? If you don't take and give back to your network, you won't really be able to build a personal brand, right? So what's the very first ingredient we need to build a personal brand? So your hint is that it's a skill. So think hard and fast here and try to realize what's the first ingredient we need to build a personal brand. Think of the steps that you need to take. For example, if you're going to start on Twitter or LinkedIn, you're going to create your profile, set up a nice DP, a nice cover photo. How will you actually start from there on to build your personal brand? Which is that skill you need? Kunal is saying speaking skills, communication skills. Most of you have got it right. Okay, language skills, building a digital presence, social media skills, right? $18 of you have joined us, 50% of you have not answered. So make sure you think and answer and engage in order to learn in today's session. Outgoing personality, that's right. Choosing the right platforms, that is important. We'll be talking about that moving forward. All right, let's cut to the chase and see what it is. So what we really need as the very first ingredient is writing skills, right? Imagine that you've created your profile, you've set up your profile on Twitter or LinkedIn, and then you don't know how to write well, right? You will not attract an audience in that way, and you won't be able to help people either, because do you think you will ever read a post or engage with a post that is not well written, or it has grammatical errors, or they're not coming to the point? What are they trying to convey? So that's why writing skills are very important when it comes to building a personal brand. So how do we start building a personal brand? The first step is to write a lot and read a lot, right? So some of the examples that I've put for you is, in order to improve your writing skills, these are the websites that you can actually use. I mostly use wordcounter.net a lot because in that way you don't have to save it as a document every time you write something. It'll just save your words in the cache of your browser and just forget it there. So if you feel like, if you're ever in the mood to write, just use wordcounter.net and just write your next post there and post it whenever you feel like. If you think that you need to enhance your writing skills, by what I mean by enhance is that you think your grammar can get better, you want to learn how to frame better sentences, how to be effective in your writing skills, then you can use hemingwayapp.com. It's I think a better alternative to Grammarly out there. So just try using that. Grammarly helps you overall improving your grammar. So just add that as a plugin in case you just want to be careful with what you write. Typeshare.co helps you create beautiful images of small essays. So a lot of people use that on Twitter. So if you're active on Twitter, feel free to use typeshare.co if you want to improve your reading. So you can only learn how to write better if you read a lot, right? So when I started writing on LinkedIn for the first 2 years, I did not read anything at all because most of my time was gone away in writing. And that's when I realized that how am I even increasing my knowledge or improving my writing skills for that matter? And that's how I started reading. I reduced writing on LinkedIn. And to this date, I've stopped writing on LinkedIn because I mostly write, or shitpost is the right word, on Twitter. So Coming back to what great reads are, I would recommend that you read a lot. Since these are a couple of couple of newsletters that I personally read a lot, which is the Hustle, the Ken, the Signal, where I work, Fincharts, etc. So you will um, learn how to write very cleverly because all these newsletters have great content. You'll be able to understand if you're writing about a certain topic, what should be your headline, what should be a couple of first lines, how do you get the point, how do you close, etc. So apart from gaining knowledge, it will also help you and give ideas to you about what to write and how to write, right? So now that your writing skills are fixed, let's just see what's the next question. Okay. So moving forward, we talk about which platform you should be working on to build your personal brand. So which one do you think is the best platform for students to build their network? Nobody's going for Instagram, Facebook. Okay, so 7 for LinkedIn, 6 for Twitter. Let's see which one is the right platform. Okay. So for students, most of you got it right. The first choice is usually LinkedIn and Twitter. Now, let's figure out the pros and cons of both. Which one is better for you, right? In order to do that for you, I'm not going to tell you the answer. You need to do that for yourself, right? So LinkedIn mostly helps you with traditional internships. That's one way LinkedIn can help you with because they have a particular job portal. But in case, let's say you want to work outside India remotely, so now that we have the pandemic, a lot of startups from outside India are also hiring interns. For that matter, Twitter is better in that case because LinkedIn mostly has, in India, a very typical Indian audience of CXOs, founders. It's not that you won't find founders there, but you will find more international founders on Twitter than on LinkedIn. So whatever your geographical importance is at the moment, you can figure out accordingly. Coming forward to the next point, which is LinkedIn is much better for organic growth. Twitter is slightly slower. You'll take time to grow on Twitter. So if you think that you can produce, let's say, 3 to 5 posts a week, you should be able to grow fairly well on LinkedIn than on Twitter, right? So if your first priority is growing a huge following, then you can go on LinkedIn. If your priority is not so much that, hey, I don't want a lot of followers, I just want some meaningful connects, that's it, and I just want to ship posts, maybe write some meaningful threads and connect with a few founders, then your Twitter is the best bet for you, right? Because a lot of founders are also hiring from Twitter, right? The next thing that I want to talk about is that a lot of us have this imposter syndrome in us as students. We don't really get to writing. We might create our profiles on LinkedIn and Twitter, but we just sort of hold ourselves back that, hey, maybe I shouldn't write it because there are much more qualified people writing there who will read my content. So my first tip for you would be that don't think that there are more qualified people. Obviously, there are, but that doesn't mean you won't write, right? Because every piece of content has value to give. Now, where you can be clever is that what will I write that these qualified people will read, right? That was the first problem statement that I had for myself when I started writing on LinkedIn when there were absolutely zero students back in 2017. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll write on things that give me value, uh, right? On a daily basis, it could be design thinking exercise that I did at my society in college, or it could be, some of the learnings I had talking to somebody who is a CXO that I connected via LinkedIn. How did I do that, etc. How to write cold emails, little things that you can learn as a student. You can write about these topics. Then you can also pick up current affairs, right? Let's say if there was a recent fundraiser, you just want to drill down on what their business idea is, a business model is, etc. Right? Whatever things that you fancy, start writing about them. It could be about psychology. A lot of people write threads on psychology on Twitter, breaking down mental models, etc. Right? So think of stuff that you really like to write and kick that imposter syndrome out of your brain. Don't think that if there are qualified people than you, more qualified people than you, that means your content doesn't hold any value, right? So just try to get rid of that and get straight to the execution part, and then you'll realize what lies ahead of you, to be very honest. Now let's quickly jump to the next part, right? How do you define your objective and audience, and why is that important, right? Because let's say you start, you've accumulated writing skills, you have figured out which platform you want to build on, but you're just producing random content, you have no objective, then certainly you won't be able to build a certain audience that you want, right? So figure out what is your goal first off. Let's say for you, your goal could be, I want to land an internship at XYZ company by this month and year, right? So that is your goal. For me, my goal back in the time on LinkedIn was that, hey, I want to help other students get on LinkedIn. And one of my other goals was to obviously get good working opportunities. So I had two goals in mind, right? And then what is the audience I want to build? The audience that I want to build was that one is of students, of course, because I want to help them get better at LinkedIn. And second was the audience that I really need is HRs and founders and team leaders, right? So that was the content that I was producing. Because every time I wrote, I used to check with myself that, hey, is this for students? Is this for CXOs? Is it overlapping with both? Great. If it's not, is it either falling into either categories, right? So just make sure you have an objective and audience before you, uh, get to producing content, right? But one of the major issues that I've seen, a lot of students do start writing content, but they don't have a great profile, right? So I'll just quickly give you an overview. I won't get into too much details, but just to quickly tell you, your headline should clearly speak of what you're aspiring to be, or where you've worked previously and what you're good at, right? So let's say that you're a designer, you've worked at XYZ company before, so you can write former XYZ company's name. And if you don't have any experience at all, you can write aspiring marketer, aspiring whatever. And then what you're good at, it could be marketing and growth, because that's what I'm good at. That's what I usually used to write before, right? So make sure your headline clearly speaks of that. When coming to your about section of your LinkedIn profile, that is very important. So you can break that about section into different paragraphs. The first could be an overview, just 2-3 quick liners, what you're doing presently, what you've done in the past, and your social causes that you care about, and the hobbies, side projects, etc., and your contact details. Make sure you do that, because a lot of people just dive there to look at your email in case they want to reach to you with an opportunity, right? And make sure experience section is in bullets, because a lot of people write long paragraphs that nobody cares to read. Your cover photos should very clearly speak of what you do, who you are, etc. It could also be of your company if you're trying to, let's say, market a product or a certain service. When it comes to featured section, a lot of people add their resumes. So don't do that mistake at all, because your LinkedIn profile is your resume. So don't be repetitive or just try to push too over selling yourself, right? So in your featured section, you can blogs or any famous certificates or anything big that you did, or let's say one of your posts went viral and it really speaks of who you are. So you can add that in the featured section. Make sure you also add exact skills that you're very good at in your skills section, because when you're applying to jobs via LinkedIn job portal, it tries to match your skill set. And if it doesn't, your application doesn't really go through, right? So make sure you do that. All right, so let's get to your headline, LinkedIn headline currently. So what is the LinkedIn headline? Let's just quickly get an idea of what your LinkedIn headline is currently. It's okay if it's wrong, if it's bad, or if it's completely way different than what we discussed. You have a minute to type. Okay. We'll on the spot discuss your headlines and see how you can improve it. So make sure you put yours here. Okay, I think we have a few answers. We should be closing in now. Great. Great. So let's look at some responses that we've got. Building X at Y. Great. Front end, back end developer looking for full-time roles. Okay, so how can we improve this headline? So LinkedIn has this option to show recruiters and other team leaders that you're looking for roles. So make sure you click on the edit profile button and turn on that looking for roles and give it a check mark so that hiring managers can see you that, hey, you're looking for roles. So you don't have to specifically mention that in your headline, right? So just probably write front end and back end developer, and that's absolutely it, right? So people will reach out to you seeing that you have mentioned your contact details, and make sure if you're looking for roles, people can also find easily your portfolio, especially if you're a developer. So make sure that's in the featured section or both in your about section as well, right? This is great. Try to add your university as well. It doesn't have to be an IIT just to be in your headline. So make sure whatever your university is, if you're mentioning final year undergrad, then try to write your college name as well. Blockchain enthusiast, which is great. Try to not write vague headlines. For example, trying to build XYZ for the next 100 students, right? It's a sentence. Or just browsing is a sentence, right? Or building India's next biggest XYZ platform, right? Because that's a sentence. So what happens is when people are looking for a certain they will write certain keywords in the LinkedIn search. For example, if they write marketer, right? Or growth, I, as a person, have to make sure that my profile pops up in that search list, right? So make sure whatever keywords that you are adding your headline matches the keyword search if a hiring manager does to find you, right? Don't write big sentences in your headline. Designing experience, add company name, right? So try to also add designer as a keyword in your headline, because if people search for designer, they might not be able to find, let's say, Kunji here, right? Because if he or she wants to be in that search list, they need to be sure that they're adding that keyword in their headline. Okay. So make sure you add that. For example, Google SWE in 21, right? So SWE is not really a keyword people will search for. So additionally to this, you can add a colon or a hyphen, not hyphen, I think a colon or a bar will work. And then try adding another section to your headline that says developer or maybe your backend, front end, etc. Right? So try to specify what you do. Software engineering intern is great. Try to add the company where you're working, right? So you can probably write @ company's name or just comma company's name, right? So you all get my point. What I'm trying to say that your headlines should really speak of who you are. For example, this is great. This is a great headline, right? People would love to know we've worked previously, and also This shows that this person knows software engineering, so maybe they can hire him or her, right? So let's quickly get to the next slide. Now that you have your writing skills, your platform sorted, your objective and goals sorted, what is the audience that you want to build, now comes the hard part, which is content. What do you actually write after attaining all of these things, right? So here are some ideas for you. You could perhaps write about a social project you did in the summer, a school activity that taught you the most. You could just go back in time and pick your learnings from there. How you applied design thinking in one of your club meetings, which is an example I gave you earlier, because this is something I actually used myself. You could also use views and opinion as your content around professional topics such as team culture, startup acquisitions, personal finance, or whatever you are really comfortable with. For example, as a developer, if you like reviewing certain projects, talk about them, share them with the world, share some good scripts that you've written so far that can help with productivity, anything at all that you like reading or writing about, just go out there and make posts about them, right? Key learnings from your internships. Don't just straight away put your thank you post saying that thank you, blah, 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 I had a great time at this internship. Because at the end of the day, you have to think about what is the value your audience is getting out of your content. That is the first question you should always ask while hitting that publish button on Twitter or LinkedIn. Keeping aside the shit posts that I recommend you do on Twitter, that is what you should ask yourself, right? So these are some content ideas that I have for you. Coming to the second last part of this workshop, which is networking the right way with potential recruiters and team leaders, right? Because once you get on a certain platform, you need to figure out the formula that works for you in order to network with them, right? Aside from engaging with their content with meaningful comments, what else can you do, right? I suggest that you write a cold message or a cold email to these people that you really look up to or really want to connect with on a very personal level, one-to-one level, right? So one of the things that I found really effective is video messages. Try to record a 1 minute video just introducing yourself and what you really find uh, worth talking about to them, or some of their content that you recently read. You want to share your views and just end it with a CTA that I'd love to get on one-on-one call with you to get the right mentorship from you and just learn from your journey so far and imbibe those learnings in order to build further in my career. Just end with that CTA. That's it. 1 minute message. And people really like video messages because you have put in a certain effort into sending them rather than just typing it on your phone from the comfort of your blanket. That almost always works. If you're not comfortable with video messages, a really effective formula of message writing is start with how did you find them or how do you know them? For example, Harita said that I've been following Dravisha for quite a while, and if she reaches out to me for a favor saying that, I would probably respond. Then you can get to the middle part of your message, which is talk about a mutual liking, a curious question that you have. Maybe they did a certain project that you really like and have similar likings there. Talk about that. What is your CTA, your clear ask? And also add in how you can help them, right? Because if you're asking for a favor or their time, rather, just make sure you also have something to give back to them. That's something a lot of people don't write, right? So make sure you add that in your certain cold email or message that you send to these people. One thing that I want to highlight is don't ask for referral or resume requests right away, because if the person doesn't know you, asking for a favor seems very cold and they might not likely help you. But if you build a certain relationship with them following these strategies, which is engaging with their content, writing a cold message, getting on a call with them, keeping that communication up, just randomly reach out to them every now and then, just talking to them, how is work going, or if you can help them with something, or if they can help you with a certain project, things like that, right? So just make sure you try to build the relationship in a very authentic way rather than that is very plastic, right? So make sure you don't do that mistake. So I have an activity with for all of you who've joined us. So try to write a 3 to 5 liner message to an HR or team lead of your favorite company. Try to do that. How would you shoot a LinkedIn message to somebody who you really want to connect with? Think hard and fast, and I'd love to see what you all write. The time is gonna get over, so take your time and just write it quickly. It's absolutely okay if you don't get it right in the first go. If you look at my code messages from back in the day, they're absolutely horrible. Okay, great. So let's look at a couple of responses that I see here and just talk about what went wrong and what is absolutely on point. So this person has written, hey, I came across your profile through mutual connections and love the work that you do for XYZ company. I'm interested in ABCD. Think I find company. I would love to connect with you and chat about future opportunities. So remember that the idea of sending the first cold message is to make sure you get a reply for your second cold message as well. For example, if you write your first cold message asking for a favor right away, you're losing the opportunity to get a reply from them via your second message, right? So the first cold message, the idea of sending the first cold message is to try to build a conversation, right? So it could be absolutely simple. For example, if I have to write to somebody who's my favorite person on Twitter or LinkedIn, I would perhaps ask them about a certain project that they've done so far, or just ask them about, or just try to share my opinion on one of their recent posts that they've done. Or maybe if they've had a career switch, I would probably pose a question around those lines, right? I would just straight up not tell them that, hey, I'm trying to look for an opportunity in your company, or I want to work with you. So try to keep that in mind, that you're trying to build a relationship here. And even though you want a favor from them, try to not make yourself sound that, hey, you're just here for the favor and you just really don't want to connect with them. Because if you're trying to find yourself interested in someone's certain project or their journey, people are more receptive to you rather than you just, sharing your CV or asking for a favor. So make sure you absolutely are right on point for the first core message that, hey, you're able to build a conversation out of it, right? So For example, this message might work because they are trying to also tell them that, hey, I am wanting to help you in a certain project which could be related to big data or machine learning, right? So this is a great message to start off with. For example, this might not work because they might ignore seeing that, hey, this person is just here to ask for job opportunities. Let me just ignore this person, right? So make sure you do that, and you're not just really this message also does not work in most cases because this is a message that almost all LinkedIn people send, right? Try to be as humane as possible, and it should not look like a template message to somebody who's reading it, right? So make sure you're as authentic as possible, right? This would really work, right? Would love to connect and collaborate. Now, how you can make this more specific and make the other person feel valuable is that if you've researched on their product well, you can just ask specifically that, hi, hey, can I help you something particular XYZ? Hey, can I help you with XYZ in your project? So your CTA could be very specific, right? If they're working on a side project, if you can just straight away tell them that, hey, can I help you increase the conversion rates of your landing page? I really like experimenting with that, and I'd be happy to help you, right? So these specific asks really help the other person find value in you, even if at the end of the day your point is to ask for a favor. So try to be as helpful as you can before you really ask for a favor, and try to be as humane as possible, right? Don't do template messages at all, right? So the last point in building a personal brand is side projects, right? So I see that culture a lot on Twitter, but I still find that lacking on LinkedIn, which is why I've you know added this point as a separate slide. Is that if you don't work on side projects, people find it difficult to find value in students, that they're hardworking, they love doing fun stuff, they like experimenting, they have that in them to, do it no matter what, right? So side projects really help you build multiple skills. In fact, I talk to students who have unpaid internships and I tell them, why are you doing work for someone who's not giving you anything back in return? Why not rather build a side project for yourself in case you don't have an opportunity in your hand, right? There was a case when somebody actually was building their side project for fun and that got acquired by a company on Twitter. And it was absolutely thrilling. So God knows where your side projects will take you. It could be a newsletter, it could be a small tool that you develop, it could be you creating a free bank of illustrations if you like making them. Anything. Just try to pick your skills that you really find that you're skilled at and just try to make side projects out of them. It could be anything at all that you love doing, right? So make sure you build side projects in order to build a stronger personal brand and a strong profile. So just revisiting action points before we conclude. Build communication and presentation skills, read and write, fix a goal, choose a platform, strategize. Uh, I think I forgot to mention that a lot of people think that personal branding means that you have to be on all platforms and have a completely great image at all of them. You don't have to do that. For example, my Instagram profile is absolutely private and I only connect with certain people that I know. My Twitter is public, my LinkedIn is public, right? So you can just focus on platforms that really suit you well, and you don't have to be at all platforms and have that pressure on you. Fix a target audience. Decide which audience do you want to create content for. Don't just randomly start. Practice writing an elevator pitch for a network. For example, the cold messaging that we discussed. Make sure that's absolutely on point, right? Ship side projects, share your journey. That is also an additional content idea for you all. Other personal branding initiatives that could help you, obviously, after you do all of this, is building a personal website. Somebody mentioned portfolio, but even if you're not in tech, having a portfolio really helps. So no matter what your strengths are, make sure you have a website that speaks all of your work. Do meetups, host online sessions with your community. For example, in my second year of building my brand on LinkedIn, I actually did student meetups in Delhi for all the students that were on LinkedIn. So I used to meet a bunch of 8 to 10 people in cafes and just talk about our journey so far and just network, right? So decide what works for you, but make sure you revisit these action points and do it one by one in order to have everything in place for yourself, right? Now, if you have any questions whatsoever for me, feel free to just submit them here. I'll just disable the timer. Right. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and I'll be happy to answer or talk about them right now. Anything that you think that is hindering your process of building your personal brand today? I guess someone's asking how much time to spend on profile building, right? This obviously depends on your time schedule. For example, I didn't spend a lot of time in building my profile. I usually used to, well, let's say when I was active on LinkedIn, I used to just write one post a day. That would hardly take, maybe 30 minutes a day. That's it. So if you think that that is the amount of posts that you want to hit is one post a day, then I think you barely need 30 minutes a day. Obviously, building your profile is that your cover photo, profile, photo, headline, etc. That will take a one-day investment. So you won't really have to spend a lot of time there. So that's hardly what it takes for me. I've seen people on Twitter who share useful content as well, unrelated posts, which you should posting to engage people. What is the balance between two? So I think for me, it's 50-50. I 50-50 should post and 50-50, write some valuable content. So both works for me. If you feel that, hey, you just terribly suck at shit posting and you can write absolutely great content, let's say on alternate days, go for that. If you think your power is writing better content than shit posting, then make that 70-30, right? So just figure out what you're really comfortable with. I'm comfortable with 50-50. So there's no right way to find a balance, but make sure even your shit posting is nice. I mean, it should make people laugh and it just not be for the sake of shit posting, right? So make sure you strike a balance that suits you. And then obviously at the end of the day, it depends on the agenda that you have from Twitter. My Twitter agenda is just barely network from people. That's it. My agenda is not to get a job. But in case your agenda, let's say, is to get a job, then it's good to have a 70-30 balance, right? 70% useful content that's from your domain where you're trying to find a job, and then 30 shit posting, right? So it obviously also depends on the agenda. How can we reach out to someone if we want to build a mentorship with them, right? So remember the slide where I talked about core messaging, your elevator pitch. Try to do that. Try to engage with their posts. On Twitter, what works is that if you turn on notifications for them, if you are always the first to engage with their content, they would obviously recognize you. And try to do that for a couple of months and then reach out to them via cold mail. They would obviously realize, oh, this is the person who always engages with my content, and you're most probably going to get a reply from them, right? So in that cold message, probably you can ask for a one-on-one call, and then if that call suits you, you can just pitch yourself that, hey, could you also mentor me? Maybe once a month we could just have this call, and I'd love to get mentored, right? So just try to think of this process that you can create in order to build a relationship with them, rather than just asking in the first message, hey, can you mentor me, when they don't know you at all, right? That's a clever way to go about it. Is personal branding absolutely necessary? It's not necessary. I mean, think of situations where you don't need a personal brand, right? The situations could be when you already have a great job. Second, in fact, even the people who have great job, I recommend them having a great personal brand, is that so that their hike in salary is even better later. Or if you think that you already have a great set of network, maybe your uncle's uncle, or maybe your uncle himself is somebody influential and can get you a job that pays you well in just, in a jiffy. You don't need a personal brand, right? So in those cases, it's absolutely not necessary. But in case you're in the market looking for a job, or if you already have a job, you want to land a better one, or just simply be out there to help people. In all those cases, you do need a personal brand. How active is too active on LinkedIn? Obviously, if you're spending unnecessary amount of screen time, which is more than an hour on LinkedIn, that is too active. How do you know what is worth sharing as a beginner? So there's nothing as worth sharing, but try to not be very lame with your posts, in the sense that they're not giving any value to your readers. Putting out your certificates and just writing, I completed my XYZ course today, or just copy pasting, plagiarizing. That is not worth sharing at all. What is worth sharing as a beginner is sharing your experiences. For example, how you managing your time, because freshers really have that very hard. So those are some beginner posts that I can think of. Other than that, your internship experiences, your experience maybe working for a club, running an event if you are at your college. Think of these certain things, or talking about community events. If you are active attending events or workshops, try to do that. These are a couple of scenarios that I think are worth sharing for you as a beginner. So try to do that. What's your take on writing a blog versus writing a Twitter thread? I think Twitter thread supersedes writing a blog always, all the time, because getting traffic to your blog is very difficult. What really works is that if you write a Twitter thread and then link your blog towards the end, that way you will get traffic. Because if you randomly just create a website somewhere on internet and just keep writing, people are almost not going to realize that, hey, this person is writing on this website somewhere. So Twitter is obviously better, and especially a thread, but you can just do a combination of both. So I think we're done with questions. Any last minute pressing questions that somebody has, feel free to post it.
Hey, Dravisha, I thought I'll jump in. I had a question, and I thought we can do this, person to person as well. So there was this really cool tech person that I know. His tip on profile building was to maintain a consistent profile throughout, as in use the same profile picture in all your profiles. Be the same person basically. If you're a product person on Twitter, be a product person on LinkedIn as well, and whatever social platforms you have which are public. What's your take on that? Do you think we could have, let's say, a shitpost on Twitter and a very professional LinkedIn and a very personal Instagram, or be the same person throughout?
So I think a great example is me. I should post most of the time on Twitter because that is something I could not explore on LinkedIn. Obviously, you can't should post on LinkedIn. It's a professional social media platform. But on LinkedIn, but on Twitter, in fact, I do that, right? So, I mean, I don't fully agree with that, but I see where that person is coming from. That person is coming from the idea of building a certain brand across all platforms. For example, if I have the same profile photo everywhere, and if somebody sees that photo everywhere, they'll just immediately click that, hey, this is Dravisha, right? That's where the idea of having the same profile picture comes from. But I'm not too ardent on building that brand. I mean, I'm not a product, and I don't want to be 101% like, oh my God, I need to build my brand, right? I'm not too edgy on that, let's say. So I like building a very personal connect of my personal brand of who I am, right? I am a mixture of fun, humor, and also I love marketing and growth. So what I do is I try to maintain that professional side on LinkedIn and also the fun side on Twitter. That doesn't mean I'm a different person. I'm just using two social media platforms to my advantage to show who I really am, right? So that's how it works for me. But you don't have to be too ardent on that, I would say. If you really want to follow strict branding guidelines, you can actually have that on all profiles, have the same photo, have the same content, have the same, I would say, aura of yourself on all platforms. But like, I think for me, it was just I was pushing myself forcefully in order to do that. I mean, if I don't want to be professional on all platforms, I mean, that would just come as like a fake intent to me that, hey, I just have to build my brand no matter who I am. That's why I didn't really go forward with that. But I mean, it's totally a personal choice. There's no right or wrong way. I wouldn't say that's wrong. I wouldn't say that's right. But it's just how you want to connect with people. I love shit posting and connecting with people that way, and I've connected with great people for that matter on Twitter. So it worked really well for me. But yeah, to each their own.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Dravisha. Do we see any other questions on the
I mean,
platform? I don't think so.
yeah, I think we're done with questions. Yeah. So you all can connect with me on my Twitter. You can just go to this link and just connect with me. Wow. We have the leaderboard as well. So you can just connect via this link with me on Twitter and just DM me anytime if you have any questions whatsoever. And I'd be happy to connect with you all there and just have a chat with you in case you have anything pressing after the session. I'd love to speak with all of you.
Thanks a lot, Dravisha. That was really great. And definitely reach out to Dravisha, whoever is listening to this live or later. We had a bit of a scheduling conflict and stuff. So I'm sure that many people will be listening in later as well. So to all of them, do mention to Dravisha that you heard her here and would like to connect. Use all the tips that she mentioned throughout. For me personally, there were a lot of really amazing tips that you suggested, like identifying the right target audience, because I'm not reactive, because like you said, I have a decent job, so I'm not that very keen on, like, putting myself out there, but I totally understand the necessity of it. And identifying the key audience and not just randomly writing when you feel like on randomly different topics. That was a really great learning for me. So any questions you have, feel free to let us know in the comments, or write directly to Dravisha. Her socials are in the YouTube video link description as well. So feel free to check that out. And thank you so much, Dravisha, for joining. And this was really cool content. It was very interactive. Thank you so much for doing this.
No, thank you so much for inviting me, and a big shout out to everybody who engaged with the presentation. I mean, that really helped me keep my levels of energy high, and I hope that I get to speak with all of you personally on Twitter in case you have doubts. And yeah, in general, if you have any feedback for me, just feel free to text me on Twitter that, hey, Dravisha, this was absolutely boring, or this was absolutely nice. I'd love to hear from all of you nonetheless. But yeah, thank you so much for hosting me, Harita. I had a lovely time.
Us too. Thank you so much, Dravisha. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll be closing today, and stay tuned for the other sessions. And our YouTube has the other sessions for the past few days as well. So feel free to check that out. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.